Oh, the Analogue Pocket. What is it? Why is it? And is it even necessary? For that, we need to go back in time. The early 90s were a simpler time for gaming. I remember spending hours on Fist of the North Star, Spider-Man 2, and even Tetris on this bad boy, the original Game Boy. It wasn't mine, it was my uncle's, and these were the games he had for it. While he spent hours hogging up the NES, his NES, he would give me this guy to keep me occupied, and honestly, 5-year-old me didn't even mind. The screen was horrible, but it didn't matter. I was grateful. I was immersed. And fast forward a few years and I finally get my own Game Boy. The Game Boy Pocket with Jurassic Park 2. It was yellow and it had a much better screen. And I remember that 2-hour drive back from my grandparents' apartment in New York all the way to Pennsylvania, trying hard to catch a glimpse of that screen with every passing light on the highway. It was nice. And then I remember the Game Gear. The Game Gear came out and I remember kids coming to the park or to the schoolyard. And they would have this and the screen was lit and man, those colors. But I never really cared to covet those features. You see, the Game Boy was perfect in my eyes. Maybe it was my allegiance to the original feeling I got when I first held that system in my hand. So as time passed, the systems got even more progressive. We got Game Boy Color and the Game Boy Advance. When I was 16, the Game Boy Advance was the first thing I bought with my first paycheck from McDonald's, and I have zero regrets. So when the SP came out, I thought the Game Boy reached perfection. The SP 101s came out and it had a backlit screen. I mean, this was it, right? We reached pixel perfection. Then the 3DS with its virtual consoles came out. Now, have we reached pixel perfection? Not quite. The images were stretched, playable, but stretched. And if you follow my content, you know that I shared how to play these games in its original resolution, which is substantially smaller than the 3DS screen. I spent years modding Game Boys trying to achieve my dream Game Boy experience. RetroPie with a nice IPS screen seemed great for a season, but emulation was never perfect. Alas, Analogue appeared. It appeared from the darkness and showed us how to properly honor the systems of yore. If you don't know Analogue, I recommend checking out their content. Even if you don't get anything from them, it's still a company that deserves respect and admiration. They create legacy consoles for people like me, for analog kind of people. Emulation is great, but there's always something about just popping in a tape, a vinyl record, or a cartridge. And this is where we come to the Analogue Pocket. Now let me start right away by saying this. While many people have their opinions about the company Analogue and their lack of service and inventory, I will not be reviewing the company, especially in its current state. I will go right off by saying if you want this, you will have to wait. The pre-order wait is pretty long, so if you buy this, patience is required. The Analogue Pocket comes in 2 colors. With help from a friend, I was able to try both the white and the one I ultimately ended up with, the black one. Each one super sleek and it has its own feel. You might be confused as to why I'm holding a yellow one here. Well, with some help from a friend, Epic Pal Designs, link in the description, I was able to relive the feels of my childhood from when I first received that yellow Game Boy Pocket. So look, I'm not gonna bore you with specs in a full review because honestly, there are so many out there. Many that will praise it and many that will beat it up for honestly no reason. This perspective is purely layman and I will answer the questions that most people ask me. Number 1, do you need it? No. It's a super sexy Game Boy with perfect pixels for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. You can achieve this on many devices these days, or even your TV. If you're a Game Boy purist, then you'll have a great appreciation for this. But honestly, you can get the same feels from the Game Boy Advance. Number 2, is it worth it? Honestly, I think so. Again, if you love the Game Boy, then you'll love this. And I find myself playing on it very often. More often than my 3DS, which I absolutely love. There's something about putting the cartridge in and just playing it. It's almost like paying respect to something that invested so much joy and wonder in your childhood. Number 3, the back exposes the cartridge too much. Isn't that an issue? Not at all. I see so many reviewers knocking the cart. Really? I see so many reviews about knocking the cart when pressing the L and R buttons or when putting the pocket down, and I honestly don't get it. I have not had this issue once, and again, I use this thing every single day. And really, if you don't care for the carts, Wolf Den just dropped some knowledge on how to load your ROMs onto the SD card. I'll link that in the description below. Number 4, what if you drop it? Okay, this one's tough because I did spend a good month not playing this around because I was afraid of dropping it. This is a premium console, and if you drop it, well, it's gonna show. This will not handle like the old Game Boys, and honestly, I just don't understand how I can scuff up my old Game Boys and be okay with it. But the device just feels like gold. It's hefty. The glass is Gorilla Glass, but if it falls in the right angle, it's gonna crack. The plastic is premium, but it will scuff, especially in the cart insert area. Adding the vinyl sticker to it seriously helps, as it won't scratch. I mean, my Pocket has its own bed that I tuck into every night. In the end, this device is my absolute favorite, and it has been a goal I've been trying to reach for a very long time. Like, it's here. It's honestly perfect for me. There's room for improvement, but I can't help but be grateful for something so cool. I think we've become so spoiled with media these days that I'm no one to pull it apart and judge the company that made this. They did this, and it's freaking awesome. Are the buttons responsive? Yes. Screen crispy? Heck yeah. Speakers loud? Heck yeah. Will it play my Game Boy games, Game Boy Color games, and Game Boy Advance games? Absolutely. Is this for you? I can't answer that. But I will say this. It's a toy that 12-year-old me would have flipped if he received it. I don't want to lose that feeling. Analogue Pocket did that for us with this device. And if a company can do that, then I'm grateful for that company. Hey, if this is your first time here, thank you for joining me today. And check out some of my past videos. Hit like, and why don't you share it with some of your friends? It'll help me very much. And if you are coming back, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining me again. Now, if you excuse me, I have a Game Boy collection to keep building. I'll see you again soon. Peace.
Just give me the old, I thought you've been told. Increase my collection, will never be sold. Value goes up, but I'll never fold. I'm running like Mario, just give me the gold. There was nothing like the 90s. Every toy, every show, every game has to be in my collection, in my mind, and in my heart. There's no place I'd rather go than to a time I remember in my room, spending hours on one RPG with my collection on my mind.